else were you expecting? Michael Myers? Nah, that guy went out like a punk. I mean, come on. For this supposedly immortal boogeyman, he certainly went down like any other regular dude that I've seen on a regular Tuesday, if I'm being honest. Yeah, okay. Yeah. That mask is a lot more comfortable than you might think it is. But yeah. Happy Halloween, everybody. And to celebrate, I have provided you with 2 spooky uploads. One I published earlier today, hopefully, focusing on Werewolf by Night. And this one, as you can clearly tell by its title, is on Halloween Kills. Now, before I give my thoughts on the movie as a whole, I want to give a little bit of a background as to how we got to this point. You see, back around 2016, 2017, roughly around then, the production company Blumhouse ended up receiving the rights to make films based upon the Halloween franchise. And this resulted in Halloween 2018 releasing in October of 2018. The movie was directed by David Gordon Green from a screenplay that he co-wrote with Danny McBride and another individual who I can't name off the top of my head. They brought back Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. They pulled a Halloween H2O where they basically just ignored all the other movies that came before it except for Halloween. But rather, in this instance, H2O only acknowledged Halloween 1 and 2, but Halloween 2018 just ignored all of them except for the first one. But yeah, it was also released during the film's 40th anniversary back in 2018. It seemed perfect. And as fate would have it, the movie was a huge success, both critically and financially, making, I believe, around $255 million worldwide, making, unadjusted for inflation, the highest grossing slasher movie of all time. So, in the summer of 2019, it was announced via Blumhouse and Universal that the movie would be receiving not 1, but 2 sequels. Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, both set to release about a year apart from each other. Now, Halloween Kills was originally going to release in 2020, as they shot the movie in Wilmington, North Carolina from August to October of 2019. That is until the COVID-19 pandemic ended up happening and they delayed both movies by a year. And then eventually filming for Halloween Ends didn't begin until January of this year in Savannah, Georgia, under the working title of Cave Dweller. Now, what is the plot of the actual movie? I should also mention, spoilers ahoy for this one, because, yeah, I feel like the fact that I just need to talk about everything that happens in this movie, so, yeah, there's that. So, what's the premise of the movie? Well, Halloween Ends is set 4 years following the events of Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills. After the massacre that Michael Myers left in his wake on Halloween night 2018, he just vanished. Like, he just disappeared. Nobody knows where he went. Nobody knows if he's even alive or not. They just know he wrecked shop in Halloween 2018, and then he just left. And Laurie and her granddaughter Allison have been trying to pick up the pieces about what's left behind in a world without Michael. But then there's a new individual by the name of Corey Cunningham enters the picture. And let's just say evil ends up reawakening once again. So, now to get to my thoughts on Halloween Ends. Yeah, it's going to be one of those videos, folks. Yeah, so let's just first talk about the positives of the movie. The cast. Obviously, of course, everybody involved does a good job with the material that they're given. Obviously, of course, it's really great to see Jamie Lee Curtis in these movies as Laurie Strode. It is a shame the fact that this is going to be her last one, but she is getting older, and obviously, of course, they need to be able to put an end to this, so it kind of makes sense. Andi Matichak, I think is the name of the actress who plays Allison. I'm sorry if I butchered her name. Obviously, of course, she does good. Will Patton, who is the actor who plays Corey, I thought was pretty neat. I thought he was pretty cool. I think he did a good job conveying who that character was, for what he needed to do. And Jude Courtney, I thought, obviously physically he's been the Michael Myers that we've seen since Halloween 2018. So there's that. And Kylie Richards, I thought for the brief bit that she ended up appearing in the movie, or was it Kyle Richards, I'm forgetting how to exactly pronounce it. But yeah, Lindsay Wallace, who appeared in Halloween Kills. And the thing is, apparently, from what I can recall, I think she initially wasn't going to be in Halloween Ends, but because of the positive reception to Richards' performance, they actually rewrote the script to include her in the movie. Then there's the kills, which, while not nearly as frequent or as bombastic as the kills in Halloween Kills, they get the job done. Specifically, one kill, which I think was probably like the standout golden chainsaw moment for me, was the moment with the radio DJ, and I believe his face ends up getting bashed in, and then his tongue gets cut off, and then as he's lying dead, his tongue is like on a record that's playing, and it's like spinning around, and like the tongue just like, the record player ends up bouncing off whenever it reaches the tongue or whatever. But yeah. The music. Composed by John Carpenter, his son Cody, and Daniel Davies, I thought was really well. I also really like the fact that they made this feel more, what's the word? Oh yeah, it's a lot more small and atmospheric, and it helps to really match the tone that they're setting up here. And I do appreciate the fact that they did play it relatively straight for the most part. It didn't have many of those weird, intentionally jokey moments that were in both Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills. They're still there, but to a lesser extent, I feel, because they are trying to play it straight for this. Has probably the best Michael Myers death scene in any of the Halloween movies that have killed him. Not just in the method that they did it, because I thought that was really interesting, but I'm not going to spoil that, but also in terms of its emotional resonance when compared to the rest of the movie. I also commend the filmmakers for trying to do something different for each movie, because Halloween 2018 was a simple, back-to-basics, just regular Halloween movie. Halloween Kills was more of an action movie, as we see the paranoia, fear, in fact, the town of Haddonville, which was a cool idea, but in execution, I didn't think it took advantage of it really well. Man, that angry mom got way too much play in that movie. And then Halloween Ends is a love story. Supposedly, I believe it's between Corey and Allison. I don't know how else it could be viewed. I'm still trying to figure out if I actually like the love story or not. It served its purpose, don't get me wrong, but I'm still trying to figure out if I actually liked it or not. But this is where I have to get into the negatives, and there's a lot more negatives than there are positives. So, the movie, even though it's called Halloween Ends, it's not really the movie that you think it is going in. Like, it's not about Laurie Strode and Michael Myers. It's more so focusing on a new character by the name of Corey Cunningham. The movie opens on Halloween 2019, and Corey is babysitting a kid. And by the way, I loved how in the scene that Corey is babysitting the kid, they're watching the John Carpenter remake of The Thing on TV, which is an homage to the original Halloween back in 1978, when John Carpenter had Laurie and Kyle Richards, the child that she was babysitting, they were watching The Thing from Another World. So I love the fact that it's able to come full circle like that, and on the 40th anniversary of when John Carpenter's The Thing ended up releasing too. So, makes sense. Then things end up taking too far when the kid tries to mess with Corey. He falls off of the staircase, and then like 10 minutes in, like there's already like a dead kid. I mean, accidental death, don't get me wrong, but still a death nevertheless. And then we cut to 3 years later in 2022, and Corey is still facing a lot of bullying and neglectfulness from the town of Haddonfield for how he accidentally let this child die. And I do think the fact that, for the first like hour or so of the movie, it does work because, it is very character driven. And, I do commend them for making it, having that be the driving force. Then around the 40-minute mark, that's when Michael Myers finally shows up. Because I was wondering, we're almost like 40 minutes into this 2-hour movie and Michael has yet to show up. Then he shows up because after Corey gets pushed off of a bridge, he ends up having a mysterious figure drag him into the sewer. And of course, that figure is Michael Myers. And Michael is nowhere near the imposing force that he once was back in Halloween and Halloween Kills. Back in that one, they made an effort to make him seem almost invincible. Like Halloween 2018, he ended up stomping that one doctor's face in like it was a watermelon. And then in Halloween Kills, you have that moment where after he was shot and stabbed by the townspeople, he just gets up like it's nothing. And he just slaughters all of them. But yet here he is 4 years later and Halloween ends. And he's just this sad, decrepit killer who needs Corey's assistance and helping to actually kill. Instead of being almost as if the damage that he's taken over the years is finally beginning to catch up with him. It's like, if you're gonna have Michael Myers either be this imposing embodiment of evil or just have him be a regular man, you can't just set him up to be one thing and then just pull the rug out underneath the rest in the third movie. Like, you can't do that. And also, Corey is actually the one who gets more of the focus. As after his encounter with Michael, Corey has basically undergone a transformation as he's basically become infected with that same evil and darkness that Michael had within him. And it's almost as if it's acting like a passing of the torch movie in which Corey's supposed to be the new Michael as he's become infected with that evil. But why? Oh, yeah. And this actually reminds me of another thing that I really was hoping. So the whole thing about Michael's evil being passed on to another, that was what I believe they did in Halloween 4, The Revenge of Michael Myers, by having Michael's niece, Jenny, I think was her name, I'm forgetting what her name was exactly, but having Michael's niece basically follow in his footsteps and basically just, basically become the next Michael Myers as she kills this individual. But they didn't go anything further than that ending in Halloween 4. Then there's the fact that, they gave all of that for Corey. But here's what I think probably could have been more interesting. So, don't know if you guys remember this, but at the ending of Halloween 2018, as Michael is perishing in the burning building that Laurie, Karen, and Allison have left him in, you see them all riding off on the back of this truck. And then you see a close-up of Allison still holding that bloody knife that she used to stab Michael. What I think probably could have made for a bit more of an interesting idea is Allison is the one who is becoming the next Michael. Like, she's become more distant from Laurie. She's begun to display much more darker and angrier tendencies. And it eventually culminates with her eventually murdering somebody on a Halloween mask, obviously. And then I think it would have been a really interesting idea in which the individual who's now become the next embodiment of evil is actually Laurie's own flesh and blood. And now Laurie has to deal with the fact it's like, well, obviously I can't let this happen. I can't let another Michael happen. But at the same time, it's my granddaughter. I think it could have made for a really interesting idea, but they don't do that. They don't go through with that. They just go with the Corey idea instead. And then the logic in this movie is just really bizarre too. Like, there's the moment when Corey ends up beating up Michael and he just steals his mask from him, and then he goes to get revenge on all of his tormentors, and then he ends up confronting Laurie, and she feigns a suicide to make it seem like she killed herself. But then Corey opens the door, she shoots him with a gun, and he falls down the stairs, and he's somehow not dead. And it very much seemed like that Laurie had every intention to kill him. And then, as he's lecturing on Corey, hearing Allison come in and being in love with her, he's like, if I can't have Allison, then nobody can. And he then proceeds to take the knife and stab himself in the throat, basically killing himself. And then Laurie's shocked all of a sudden, and then she tries to take the knife out of him. And then Allison walks in to see Laurie holding a bloodied knife and Corey on the floor bleeding, obviously not mentioning the fact that, he's had the Michael Myers mask with him. And so Allison just gets angry at Laurie. She storms off. And then afterwards, Laurie takes a moment and she goes by herself, and then she starts crying all of a sudden. It's like, what was the train of thought that led you to this? What is your motivation? What is happening? I'm keeping that in because it's very, very fitting for what I'm talking about. But anyways, then there's the actual final confrontation between Michael Myers and Laurie Strode, which they save for like the final 10 to 15 minutes of the movie. And it is very underwhelming, to say the least. And that just brings me to my final complaint with this movie, is that both this and Halloween Kills, they didn't need to exist. Because I remember hearing about an interview about a couple of years ago with David Gordon Green and Danny McBride, and they mentioned about how they originally pitched this as 2 movies. But then they realized the fact that they instead wanted to focus on making one good film, so they made Halloween 2018 with a definitive beginning, middle, and end. It just feels like that the idea for the sequels came more so an afterthought when the film became a huge success. Like, Halloween 2018 ends on a pretty definitive note. You have Laurie finally being able to get revenge on Michael after all those years. Her daughter and her granddaughter all end up coming together to defeat Michael, leaving him in this burning house. And they end up riding off into the sunset, essentially, knowing that they can live to fight out their day and Michael will be gone. And then Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends come along and it's like, no, not really. And it's like, what? Like, these movies didn't need to exist. And not only that, but I believe David Gordon Green is actually working with Universal and Blumhouse again, and he's making a movie based on The Exorcist. And apparently it's a sequel, and they're doing a Halloween 2018 where they're making it be a sequel to the original. And I believe the fact that they actually got the actress who played Reagan's mother from the first movie to come back for this, and apparently Leslie Odom Jr. is going to be in it too. And it's like, and apparently there's also talks that this is also going to be a trilogy and as well. It's like, what? How the Halloween movies taught you guys nothing? So yeah, for Halloween Ends, it kind of ended on a whimper. In fact, hold on. I actually have this written down somewhere. Where is it? Here we go. Halloween Ends? Yeah, I sure wish it did. 2 movies ago. That basically sums everything up about my thoughts on Halloween Kills and Ends. Halloween Kills, it was a really good return to form, and yet we have Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, which, granted, tried to do something different and really have a meaning behind them, with Halloween Kills being about, the paranoia and fear being able to infect an entire town. Halloween Ends basically being a story about about evil continuing onwards or being reborn and things like that. But it's like, I think I'm just more so confused than I am angry at these movies. Because there were good kills, don't get me wrong. If you're coming into this for a slasher movie, if you're coming into this for good kills, you'd be pretty good. Oh yeah, also the movie wasn't even that really scary. Like, there were only like 1 or 2 moments in which I jumped, but that was only because it was kind of the typical jump scare where it starts in all silence and something happens and they play like this loud boom noise to really startle you. And I was legitimately startled because I wasn't paying attention, and so when it did happen, I was, But yeah, it wasn't really all that scary if I'm being completely honest. But yeah, Halloween 2018, while I do think the fact that it is still the best out of all the sequels, it's funny about how its own trilogy of sequels would eventually just continue to diminish in quality. And Halloween Ends is very much a fever pitch with that. Granted, as I mentioned beforehand, I commend the filmmakers for trying to do something different. I am glad the fact that they took a chance. They tried to do something unique. And even Jamie Lee Curtis herself was like, this movie is going to make people very angry. And John Carpenter mentioned it is a departure from the previous 2 movies. Because there is an alternate ending to Halloween Kills in which Laurie ends up learning about how Michael murdered Karen, her daughter. And then she ends up leaving the hospital with a knife in her hand. And clearly that was meant to showcase that Ends was supposed to take place after Halloween Kills on the same night, Halloween 2018. But because of all of the stuff that ended up happening with the COVID-19 pandemic and everything that's happened since then, they ended up using the opportunity to completely change up the story and have it be set like 4 years after Halloween 2018 and kills. Oh, and one other thing is that I am happy the fact that Laurie is in a bit of a better place now since Halloween 2018 and kills, but she is still haunted by the presence of Michael Myers, which people say that she provoked into killing again. And unless it's the fan theory where it was Laurie who was drunk off of her butt, off of like wine or alcohol or whatever, she was the one that caused the bus crash that caused Michael to escape in the first place. Unless that's not true, then the townsfolk were like, why are you blaming her for this thing that had nothing to do with her? If Laurie was there or not, Michael was probably no doubt going to show up anyway, and he was probably going to kill people. Like, why are you just pinning the blame on her? But, yeah, that was my thoughts on Halloween Ends for now, because even though this is the last in the, what I'm going to call the Halloween 2018 trilogy, you know for a fact that it's not going to be the last Halloween movie, not by a long shot. It's just going to be the last one for now. But, yeah, that about sums everything up. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys have a wonderful evening or day, depending on your time zone. And as always, happy Halloween. Oh no, I almost turned into the Jared Leto Joker. That really is horrifying.